It was like, this was my new life. I started having visions. So I visualized myself being in the Mr. Europe contest and winning. And I was absolutely convinced is you got to have a very clear vision. Yeah. Because if you don't have that, you're just floating around. Just sit quietly and to just visualize. I feel sorry for kids today that you can have the best airplane in the world with the most advanced pilot. But if he doesn't know where to go, he's just going to fly around until it crashes. And that's why a lot of people are unhappy.
When you hear about your childhood, it's not easy, it's tough, it's rough, it's harsh. There's so many, some people struggle to have a vision because they say, well, how can I have a vision? Look where I am.
Of things of growing up after the Second World War in 1947, I was born, and to grow up with no food, with starvation and famine, and my mother going around what they call hamstering, which means begging at various different farmers for food, so she had food for the children. So all of that, I think, had an impact and a strict upbringing. My father was very strict. We were hit many times and punished for not doing the things the way they thought we should do things. We had to earn breakfast, like you said. We had to do push-ups and sit-ups and compete, knee bends and all this stuff, running around the house in order to be allowed to have breakfast. So I think all of that contributed, and also I think having the military around, the British military that was, because they occupied that area of Austria. They came always around with their tanks and with their big trucks and everything. And I think that gave me the fascination of, becoming a tank driver myself, and I went into the Austrian army. He was very good friends with the swimming coach, the guy that kind of took care of everything there at the lake. And they were working out. And they were inviting me to work out with them. So to me, that was kind of the first experience where someone kind of dragged me in and inspired me. And I said, oh my God, can you imagine looking like that? And he, if he wanted it or not, happened to be very good. Because he said to me, he says, well, Arnold, in 5 years, you could look like me. And I was visualizing right away. Oh my God, can you believe that if I could look like that and I'm Mr. Austria?
Yeah.
So that was like major. And I just felt like this is almost kind of my new dad.
Yeah.
He was 32 years old and he became kind of like a mentor. I realized that they invited always these athletes out to the lake, shot putters and javelin throwers and weightlifters and boxers, bodybuilders. I mean, all kinds of athletes, they all would work out together and have a good time. And we kids were kind of like hanging out with them.
Yeah.
And every so often we would work out with them. So I got my real early inspiration that way. And then I went down to the club, to the weightlifting club. I started working out and started really become religious about it. It was like, this was my new life. And very clear visions of being a Mr. Austria. Then there were pictures of the Mr. Europe contest. So I visualized myself being in the Mr. Europe contest and winning. And then I saw pictures of Reg Park, which is a British bodybuilder who then subsequently later on moved to South Africa, married a South African woman by the name of Marianne. And they created a family in South Africa. So that became kind of my idol. And I saw pictures of him winning Mr. Universe in London. And so that was my new vision. So I started really creating through this guy's a vision. But that vision was so vivid, so clear, that I felt like all I had to do now is just follow through with the work. So let me now find out what needs to be done. And so I read about Reg Park. How did he train? He trained like 4 or 5 hours a day. And he did so many sets, and so many reps, and these are the exercises he did the bench press, the incline press, the curl, the shoulders presses, and the this and that. And I just wrote everything down, and I started following his routine. And I was absolutely convinced that I will be another Reg Park. And so that's how I really developed my first rule that I always talk about to success is you got to have a very clear vision
Yes.
of where you want to go. Because if you don't have that, you're just floating around. And so, I was very fortunate that I created that vision. I was very fortunate that there was not the side kind of things going on. We didn't have a phone in our house. We didn't have a television in our house. At that time, there were no iPhones, there were no iPads, there was no computer. There was just really, you had all the time in the world to think and to really just sit quietly and to just visualize. And I always say that I feel sorry for kids today that are spending hours and hours on that iPhone or an iPad or computer, and they don't give themselves that chance to just settle back and to just figure out what do they want to do or who do they want to be. And so this is why I think that I made that kind of the rule number one is, visualize. And I always compare it to that you can have the best airplane in the world with the most advanced pilot. But if he doesn't know where to go, he's just going to fly around until it crashes. And that's what happens to you in life. If you don't know where you want to go and who you want to be, you eventually just float around and you eventually crash. And that's why a lot of people are unhappy.
Yeah.
They take drugs, or they drink, or the suicide rates. I think a lot of it has to do because people really don't have as much of a purpose and the mission and the vision and all of the things that drove me from the time I was like 15 years old. It was very clear which direction I want to go.
How did you allow yourself, or how did you develop that ability that even though around you there wasn't that much success, there was more stress, but you saw Mr. Austria and were able to do that? Have you ever figured out what that was compared to everyone else you grew up around?
I just can tell you I was very unhappy.
Yeah.
I was unhappy with the reality of what was around me. The tough parents and the lack of food, and others had steaks. We didn't have the money for that. As a matter of fact, we never ate meat during the week. Now, today they would say, oh, this is really good because you were vegan as a kid, but it was more because of a lack of money. So we didn't have anything. So everywhere I looked, so I think to me, the only way really was, in order to be happy, is to create my own world and to visualize. That's why people sometimes read a lot, because they want to escape into another story, or today they watch movies to go and to see to escape into another story and all this stuff. For me, that wasn't available.
Did you ever have a plan B?
I never believed in plan B because I felt kind of like one of the rules we have in my book is never listen to the naysayers.
Yeah.
To me, I always felt kind of like every single dream of mine, and of course, I have to say they were outrageous dreams. So people said, this is stupid.
Yeah.
What is the matter with you? That would never happen. I mean, your dream is to go to America. What do you think, they're waiting for you over there? I mean, there's plenty of people over there. They have over 300 million population. They don't need any more. And so that was the kind of saying, you would never make it to America, and they don't need you. So no, impossible. When I said I want to be a world champion in bodybuilding, that was impossible. When I said I want to get into movies, that was impossible. So it was always impossible. So I felt that we can go and defend ourselves from that and just not listen to the naysayers. But if I start having a plan B, then all of a sudden I'm becoming, in a way, a naysayer to myself.
Wow, yeah, true.
So because that means now that I'm saying, well, maybe this isn't working out. And if it's not working out, we should have a plan B. So to me, this is the most dangerous of all of the naysayers, is me saying no, and it's impossible maybe to myself. So therefore, I felt the best way of handling that is not to have a safety net and not to have a plan B. That I'm at risk And therefore, I have to be at all times on the edge and a 10. So I don't fall where I would need a safety net.
Yeah.
This is the way I dealt with that issue. Never have a plan B. Always go all out with my plan and really put 100% of effort into it in order to really achieve it. And I just always believed in my goals. I mean, I remember when I ran for governor, and people said, "You're crazy." I mean, this great Davis is going to take you out, and then if he doesn't, Bustamante is the lieutenant governor. These are all seasoned politicians. You don't know anything about politics and blah, blah, blah. Why don't you run first for mayor? And why don't you do this? No. I was very clear with my vision. I could see myself as the governor because I felt that the people in California were very upset at the regular politicians. I mean, they were always talking about what they know and how smart they are and how they're going to fix things. In the meantime, we had a $30 billion deficit. In the meantime, we had blackouts. In the meantime, they were handing out driver's license to illegal immigrants, or what they call undocumented immigrants. And everything that the people were against and the people didn't like, the Indian gaming tribes were gambling and having gambling casinos, but not paying taxes. So they were mad about that. So I would just tell people, if I become governor, I would change all that. And the workers' compensation costs for businesses in California, I will cut that in half. That's why so many businesses left California, because of the cost of doing business. So I said, I will cut that in half. And so this is exactly, people bought in because I was talking believable. I mean, I could put my hand in the fire for the people to do the things that I promised. Those things will be done.
The word sell, but you say one of your lessons is sell, sell, sell. So walk us through how you were able to, I mean, obviously, even all the movies, the franchises you've created, it requires promotion, it requires selling. And of course, they were highly entertaining. But tell us what you learned about how to sell effectively, but also authentically.
First of all, I think you're totally right that the word selling sometimes comes off sleazy. So that's why I can call it promotion or communicating or whatever you call it. And the point of it is that you can have the best product in the world, but if no one knows about it, what's the point of the product? I mean, I would like to know, for instance, if there is someone out there that does a heart surgery or valve replacement without having to have open heart surgery. But if I don't know, I would just go to the hospital and say, I want to have an open heart surgery and I want to get the valve replaced. But if I know, because they promoted it well, I can go now and call that expert and then go. So this is why I think it's so important. So to me, I learned the art of selling way back when I was 15 years old, when I was in trade school. And when I was working for this lumberyard kind of construction company, hardware store, it was like a combination of things. We were taught how to sell the merchandise. And then sometimes we were able to follow the guy that is the boss. And he one time said to me, he says, Arnold, why don't you help me here? And he would talk to the customer. And I realized quickly that there was something odd going on, that all of a sudden his attention focused on the wife. There was this couple, they wanted to have some, tiles for the bathroom and for the kitchen. And he first talked to him and how much money does he want to spend and all this stuff, what colors and all. Then all of a sudden he ended up only talking to the woman. So he says, so what did you learn? I said, well, I learned that you were really very clear about all the advantages and disadvantages of the various different tiles and the various different colors. He says, yeah, that's right. But it's one dimension. But what else? I said, I don't know. He says, did you see how I shifted and my attention went from the husband to the wife? I said, yeah, what was that all about? And he says, well, I realized that he had really no interest in the tiles, what color it should be, what type, real tiles or fake tiles or what. It was her vision and it was her desire to have new tiles. And he just went along with it because he's the husband, he's the provider of the family, he makes the money, she didn't make the money, but she had a very clear vision of what she wanted. So I shifted my focus because I realized that she is the customer, not him. And you got to go and be able to reach the customer. And this is why I started talking to her more. So she was much more precise. And so that's why he spent most of his time with that. So those are the things that I've learned when I was selling, and how important it is to actually let the people know that you have this product, is, give something back to the community, because we are not self-made people. And I talk about this at great length in the book, because people so many times call me a self-made man. I know what you're talking about, but I always want to make clear at the same time, I'm not a self-made man. I was created by my mother and my father. I was created by my teachers, by my coaches, by my bodybuilding champions, that they were my idols. And Joe Weider, that brought me to America, Eric Morris, who was my acting coach, Chuck Nicholson, that recommended this acting coach. So all of these people had a tremendous amount. My wife did help me in every step of the way, with the kids. My kids were really helpful in my career. So I'm a product of all of that. And so I think it's important that when we recognize that we have gotten the help, that we therefore give help back. So that's why you have to ask yourself the question, okay, now if everyone helped me to be where I am, how can I not go out and help? Whom? Who can I help? What can I help them with? And I talk about it in a book that my father-in-law, Sergeant Shriver, had this great line at the university speech at Yale, where he said, don't look always in a mirror. Don't look at yourself. Destroy that mirror. You will be able to look beyond that mirror, and then you will see the millions of people that need your help. And so this is what it's all about, is to not just look at yourself or be self-consumed. Yes, you can be, but don't forget ever that there's a lot of people out there that need your help. And even though when people say, well, what can I do? I'm a nobody. I don't have any money. That's bogus. It's an excuse right off the top that I don't want to do anything. Because when you see Hawaii burning down to the ground, there's a lot of things that everyone can do. But just taking some food and bringing it to those poor folks, bringing some clothing, going out and going to some fundraising and bring a few dollars to them. Whatever it is, you can do something. Or to go into some inner city school and to help with an after-school program and to help kids learn how to read, especially since, in America now, we have so many students where English is a second language, to help them to learn English and all this stuff. So there's endless amount of things. I just always felt that I have to be all out. You go out and you reach out, and that's why I'm involved in after-school programs. That's why I was involved in Special Olympics and being a trainer and a coach for Special Olympians to help them with winning medals and becoming champions and all this stuff. So that's what life is all about, to receive and to give.